The doors had opened, and the whole world stopped breathing. Naya stood frozen in the middle of the penthouse, her heart slamming so hard she could feel it in her teeth, and she stared at the figure stepping out of the light. Kim was already moving, already pulling her behind him, but she barely felt his hand, because she knew that walk. She knew those shoulders. She had cried on them. Marcus. Her Marcus. The man who had brought her soup the week the photos went up. The man who sat with her on the boutique steps and told her the world was cruel and she was not what they said. The man who had held her hand 3 days ago and promised her none of it was her fault. He looked at her the way you look at a job you have finished. And every soft memory she had of him turned over in her stomach, like something rotten. The soup. The steps. The hand on hers. None of it had been kindness. All of it had been a man checking the locks on a cage she had not known she was standing in. Kim did not look surprised. That was the thing that frightened her most. His arm was a bar of iron across her body, pushing her back, and his voice when it came was low and flat and deadly. Marcus, he said, and the name was a blade. Or should I use the name he was born with? Marcus smiled. It was a stranger's smile. Names, Marcus said softly. Such small things. She called me a friend for 8 months and never once asked for mine. The words hit Naya like cold water. 8 months. He had come into her life 8 months ago, long before the photos, long before Kim. He had been placed there. Planted. A seed sown in her loneliness, waiting for the season he was grown for. She thought of every secret she had handed him. Her fears. Her loneliness. The shape of her own self-doubt, mapped out for him over cheap coffee while he nodded and learned exactly where she was weakest. He had not befriended her. He had studied her. And then he had handed the blueprint to someone else. And then a second man stepped out of the elevator, and Kim went absolutely still. Naya felt the change in him through his arm, through the air. Whatever Marcus was, this was the one that mattered. An older man, elegant and gaunt, with silver in his black hair and a long pale scar down his throat, moving like the floor belonged to him. No, Kim breathed. Just that. One word, and Naya heard something in it she had never heard from him before. Not fear of dying. Something worse. The fear of a ghost. You buried me, the older man said pleasantly. You should have checked I was in the box, little brother. Brother. Naya's head snapped toward Kim, the man who told her everything at that dinner table, the man who had laid himself bare. And he had never once said he had a brother. There was a whole grave in his past she had never been allowed near, and it had just walked into the room. Han-jae stepped into the warm light of the living room and looked around it slowly, the way a man returns to a house he used to own. He took in the glass, the gold, the city laid out beneath them. All of this, he murmured, built on my name, on my blood, and you gave it a soft place to sleep and called it love. His eyes slid to Naya. Her. She felt his gaze move over her like a hand taking inventory, and every old instinct screamed at her to shrink, to fold inward, to make herself small the way she had her whole life. She did not. She lifted her chin and stared back. And somewhere behind her, she felt Kim's hand tighten, not in warning now, but in something like pride. Oh, Han-jae said, and his smile widened a fraction. She has teeth. I almost understand it now. He turned his attention back to Kim, and the amusement drained from his face, leaving something flat and patient and terrible. I spent 3 years building this. Do you want to know how easy you made it? Whatever this is, Kim said, it is between you and me. She walks out. Now. Then you and I finish what we started a lifetime ago. Han-jae laughed softly, and the sound of it raised the hair on Naya's arms. No, he said. You do not understand yet. She is not your hostage to trade. She is the entire point. For years I looked for the crack in you, Han-jae said. A man with nothing to lose cannot be hurt. So I waited, and then I made you one. I found a lonely woman the world had already taught to hate herself, and I gave her to you wrapped in your own protective instincts. His eyes glittered. I did not steal your weakness, brother. I grew it for you. There it was, the whole monstrous shape of it. She had not been chosen by Kim. She had been selected for him. Her loneliness, her self-hatred, the very wounds she was most ashamed of, those had been the qualifications. A man had looked at the worst things she believed about herself and seen a useful tool. And still, underneath the horror, a small hard voice she did not recognize as her own said, no. Because here was the thing none of them had counted on. Not Han-jae, not Marcus, not even the cruel voice that had lived in her own throat for 28 years. A woman who has already survived hating herself is not so easily destroyed by someone else trying to do it. They had built her to be the soft spot. They had not imagined she might be the blade. A door slammed open, and Min Park was suddenly in the room, gun low, breathing hard, blood on one sleeve that was not his own. Boss, he said, eyes never leaving Han-jae. They are in the building. Lower floors are gone. I sealed the private stair, but it will not hold. We have minutes. Maybe less. Kim's mind was already moving. Naya could see it, running the angles, the exits, the math of survival he had done 1,000 times. But this time the equation had her in it, and that changed everything. Han-jae watched him think and seemed delighted by it.
There he is, he said.
The strategist. Tell me, brother, can you calculate your way out of loving someone? And here is where the woman they had built to be helpless did the one thing none of them expected. She stepped forward. Not behind Kim. Beside him. You want him to watch something break, she said to Han-jae, her voice shaking but climbing. So you picked me because you thought I was already broken. You read my whole life, and you missed the only part that mattered. I already survived someone teaching me to hate myself, she said. I did it for 28 years. You are an amateur. For the first time, the amusement on Han-jae's face flickered. Just slightly. And Kim turned his head and looked at her like he was seeing the sunrise. In the middle of the most dangerous moment of both their lives, Kim Cho looked at the woman the world had thrown away and fell in love with her all over again. And if you are feeling that too, if your chest is tight watching her finally stand up after everything, hold on to it, because I need to ask you something before what comes next. If you came back for this, if you waited for part 2 because Naya got into your heart and would not leave, then tap that subscribe button right now. Not because I am demanding it, but because it tells this small channel that these stories are landing in real chests, beating in real time. New here, and already on the edge of your seat? That is exactly how it should feel. Subscribe and stay. The next 10 minutes are going to take everything from these two, and you are going to want to be in the room when it does. Han-jae's patience, it turned out, had a floor. Enough, he said softly. He lifted one hand, an old casual gesture, and behind him Marcus reached into his jacket and drew a pistol with the ease of a man who had done it many times. The kind soup-bringing neighbor was gone completely now. Naya stared at the gun in the hands of a man who had wiped her tears, and something in her grieved even now, even here, because part of her had loved Marcus, the version of him that never existed, and you cannot unfeel a thing like that just because it was a lie. Why, she asked him, not begging, just needing to know. Marcus's jaw moved. For a single second, something almost human crossed his face. He owns my family's debt, he said quietly. He owns me. You were an assignment, Naya. A pause, and then lower, almost too low to hear. I did not expect to be sorry about it. It was not an apology, but it was not nothing. And she would hold on to that small crack later, when it mattered. It happened fast then, the way real violence always does, with no music and no warning. Min Park moved first, throwing himself sideways and firing, and the room exploded into noise and motion. Marcus dove behind the stone console. Kim seized Naya and hauled her down behind the heavy couch as glass burst somewhere above them and the cold night air came howling in. Behind the couch, in the half-second of cover, He took her face in both his hands. "Listen to me," he said, fast and low, gunfire cracking around them. "There is a stairwell to the roof. A helicopter. Min will get you to it."
"Us," she said. "Get us to it."
His eyes did something then. A flinch. A grief. And she knew he was not planning to come. "No," she said, gripping his shirt. "Do not you dare. I just learned how to want to live, Kim. Do not you dare teach me that, and then leave." "I am not leaving you," he said. "I am buying you a door. There is a difference, and one day you will let yourself believe it." Her own words, from a lifetime ago at the boutique, handed back to her like a wound. Min Park rose from cover and laid down a wall of fire, roaring at them to move.
"Go, boss. Now."
Kim pulled Naya up and they ran, low and fast, through the ruin of the room that an hour ago had held the most peaceful night of her life, the broken glass biting under their feet, the city screaming cold through the shattered window. The stairwell swallowed them, red-lit and echoing, the gunfire behind them muffling as the heavy door swung shut. They climbed. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed, the old voice in her head reaching for its favorite words. "You cannot do this. You are too much, too slow, too heavy." And for the first time in her life, she told it out loud, between gasping breaths, to shut up. Kim reached back and took her hand and pulled, and they climbed together. And somewhere in that desperate red-lit ascent, she understood something the old voice had hidden from her for decades. Her body was not the thing that betrayed her. Her body was carrying her up 40 floors away from death. It had always been on her side. Then they heard it. Footsteps below. Unhurried. Climbing. Not many. One set, maybe two. Whoever it was did not run, and somehow that was worse, the patience of a hunter who knows the prey has nowhere left to go but up, and that up ends at a roof. Kim stopped on a landing. He looked down into the dark where the footsteps came from, and then he looked at her, and Naya saw the decision finish forming in his eyes before he said a word. "The roof is 2 flights up," he said. "The pilot knows you now.
Go."
I will slow them. I am not leaving you in a stairwell to die for me," she said, her voice cracking down the middle. "I spent my whole life being told I was a burden. I will not let the one person who told me I was not throw himself away to prove it." Something broke open in his face. He pressed his forehead to hers, the way he had on the balcony when the world was still soft. "You are not a burden," he said. "You are the reason. There is nothing on this earth I would not spend to keep you in it. Not my empire. Not my life. Let me choose this. For once, let someone choose you all the way." And there it was. The thing she had spent 28 years certain she would never hear and never deserve. Someone choosing her all the way, no hedge, no exit, no conditions. It was the most beautiful thing anyone had ever said to her. And it was breaking her heart in real time, because she understood it was also a goodbye. But the choice was taken from both of them, because Han Jae's voice drifted up the stairwell, close now, far too close. Such a touching place to say farewell, he called, and then he was there, rounding the landing below with Marcus at his shoulder, a pistol loose in his pale hand, blocking the only way down. Kim turned and put Naya at his back against the cold concrete wall, his body between her and the 2 guns below. Han Jae climbed 3 more steps and stopped, looking up at them with the serene patience of a man at the end of a very long road.
"Here we are," he said.
"Exactly where I have wanted us for 3 years. I am a fair man," Han Jae said, which was the cruelest lie Naya had ever heard. "So, I will let you keep something, brother. One of you walks up to that roof. One of you stays here with me." He leveled the gun, not at Kim, but past him, at Naya. "Her life or yours? Choose. Or I choose for you, and I am not sentimental." The barrel found her. She felt it like a cold finger on her chest. And in that frozen instant, Naya did the math too. The same math Kim had been doing since the elevator opened, and she opened her mouth to say me, Take me, let him live, because a man like Kim mattered to the world, and a woman like her never had. But before the old voice could offer her up like it always had, Kim moved. He did not choose with words. He never did. He simply turned, in the half-breath before anyone could stop him, and put his whole body in the line between the barrel and the woman he loved. The gunshot in that concrete space was the loudest sound she had ever heard. It did not hit her. She understood that slowly, in pieces, the way the worst truths arrive. It did not hit her because Kim was already there, his body jerking hard against hers, a sound leaving him she would hear in her nightmares for the rest of her life. He folded against her, and his weight took them both down to the cold landing, and she was screaming his name without hearing herself. No, 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 look at me. Look at me. Stay, she begged, her hands pressing uselessly against the spreading dark on his back. His eyes found hers, glassy and calm, and his mouth moved, and what he said was not a goodbye. Worth it, he breathed. You. Always. Worth it. And his eyes started to close. And the most dangerous man the city had ever feared lay broken on a concrete floor because he had loved a woman the world told her was unlovable, and that, Naya thought wildly, that was the whole truth of everything, wasn't it? They had built her to be his weakness. They had never imagined she might be the only thing worth his strength. Han-jae lowered the gun and watched, and on his face was the strange, empty quiet of a man who has finally gotten the thing he spent years wanting and discovered it tastes of nothing. There, he said softly, almost to himself. Now, you know what I knew. Now you have lost the thing you could not protect. He had not killed Kim. He had done something he thought was worse. He had let him live to be helpless. Then everything broke loose at once. Min Park came down through the upper door like a falling building, firing, and the stairwell turned to thunder. Han-jae melted back into the shadows below with the unbothered ease of a man who had already won what he came for. Marcus hesitated, one terrible second, his gun half raised toward Naya crouched over Kim's body. And Marcus Bassi, the man who had betrayed her for a debt, looked at Naya holding her dying love on a concrete floor, and the assignment finally cost more than he could pay. He lowered the gun. Go, he said hoarsely. The roof. Go now, before I remember who owns me. Then he turned and disappeared down the stairs after his master, leaving the one human choice he had left behind him like a dropped coin. Min Park reached them and took one look at Kim, and his hard face did something Naya had not known it could do. It crumpled, just for an instant, before the soldier slammed back down over the grief. He is breathing, Min said, hauling Kim up across his shoulders. Barely. The roof. Move, now, stay with me. They climbed the last 2 flights as one desperate animal, Naya's hand never leaving Kim's hanging arm, her voice a steady broken stream telling him to stay, to hold on, that she had not survived everything just to lose him on a staircase. And somewhere in that climb, she stopped praying to a god and started making a promise to him instead. If you stay, she whispered to him, climbing, I will never be small again. I will become something they all regret. I will make the people who did this wish they had never heard my name.
Just stay.
Stay and watch me do it. She did not fully understand what she was promising yet, but the city would soon enough. They burst out onto the roof, and the night swallowed them, cold and vast and roaring with rotor wash. The helicopter was already spinning up, the pilot screaming at them to hurry. Min ran for it with Kim across his back, and Naya ran beside them under the huge black sky, the city she had once been laughed at by glittering far below, indifferent and enormous. They got him inside. Naya pulled his head into her lap and pressed both hands to the wound and did not let the panic win, because he needed her steady now, and being what someone needed was a thing she finally knew she could be. The helicopter lurched off the roof and tilted away into the dark, and below them, in the tower they were fleeing, the lights of the penthouse burned. She looked down once at the shrinking tower, at the empire of glass and gold that had been Kim's whole life, and she felt the strangest thing settle over her grief. Not just fear. Something colder and clearer. Han Jae was still down there. Still breathing. Still free. And he had taken something from the man she loved that no helicopter could fly them away from. "Stay with me," she whispered into his hair, the rotors thundering around them. "We are not done. You hear me? We are not anywhere near done. And if your heart is in pieces right now, if you are holding your breath for this man, then do something for me in this exact moment, because what I am about to ask matters. If you are still here, still riding every second of this with them, drop the emoji that matches exactly how your chest feels right now. Tell me where in the world you are watching from and what time it is where you sit. And if you are watching on your TV, reach over and hit that like button so I know you are in the room with us, because the next part of this night is where everything Naya is about to become begins, and I want to know who stayed for it." By the time gray dawn touched the windows, Kim Cho was alive. A surgeon Min trusted with his life had worked over him for hours behind a closed door while Naya sat on the floor outside it, her back against the wall, her dress stiff with his blood, refusing every offer of a chair, a blanket, a word. She had learned long ago how to wait in a hallway for news about a body she loved.
Alive.
But the word the surgeon used when he finally came out, wiping his hands, was a word that changed the shape of the rest of their lives. The bullet had done its damage low along the spine.
Kim would live.
Kim would wake. But the surgeon's eyes, when they met hers, were careful and sorry, and Naya understood before he said it that the man who walked into that penthouse would not walk out of this room. Not ever again. She did not fall apart. She had thought she would, when a moment like this came. Instead, a strange calm moved through her, the calm of a person whose life has just narrowed to a single clear purpose. She thanked the surgeon. She asked to see Kim. And she walked into that room already becoming someone new, because the woman who loved a soft life could not protect him now, and she had promised on a staircase that she would learn to. He woke in the thin morning light and found her there, and the first thing he did, the very first thing, was try to lift his hand to her face and fail, and understand from her expression what that failure meant. She watched him learn it. She watched the proudest man she had ever known be told by his own body what had been taken. She expected him to rage.
To grieve.
To turn from her in the particular way proud men do when they cannot bear to be seen reduced. He did none of it. He looked at her, and the first words out of the most feared man in the city were not for himself at all. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "Did he touch you? Tell me you are not hurt." And that broke her. Finally. The way the gunfire and the blood and the surgeon's careful eyes had not. Because flat on his back, robbed of the body that had ruled an underworld, his first thought was still her. "I am not hurt," she said, pressing her forehead to his. "Because you would not let them. And now it is my turn to not let them. Do you hear me, Kim? My turn." He searched her face for a long moment, and whatever he found there, it was not the frightened woman from the boutique counter anymore. It was something that made his breath catch. Something he recognized because he had spent his whole life being it. He saw, rising in the woman he loved, the exact steel that the world had always feared in him. And he did not know yet whether to be awed by it or afraid for her. The days that followed were quiet and terrible, and somehow also the closest they had ever been. She did not leave. She learned the machines, the medicines, the careful work of his recovery. She bullied him into eating. She read to him from the romance novels he pretended to find ridiculous. And slowly, the wheelchair by the bed stopped being a horror and started being a fact, the way all unbearable things eventually become ordinary. The first time he let her wheel him to the window to see the city, he was silent for a long time, looking down at the streets that had once trembled at his name.
"They will know by now," he said at last,
"that I am like this. In my world, brother, a wounded king is not pitied. He is replaced. Han Jae did not just take my legs. He took the one thing that kept us safe. The fear. Every rival I ever crushed," he went on, "every man who ever wanted what I built, they are all watching this address right now, smelling blood. Hanjae knows it. That is why he let me live. He did not want to kill me. He wanted to feed me to them slowly. Naya stood behind his chair and listened, and a plan she did not yet have words for began, quietly, to take shape. She had spent her whole life being underestimated. By strangers, by Tasha, by the cruel voice in her own head. And she was beginning to understand that the most dangerous thing in the world is a person everyone has agreed to ignore. No one was watching her. No one ever had. In a world full of men smelling blood, the overlooked woman behind the wheelchair was the one piece on the board nobody thought to guard against. And then, 4 days later, the past walked back in. Min Park brought her in personally, one hand clamped around her arm.
Tasha.
Naya's best friend since they were 9 years old. The one who had taken the photos. She looked nothing like the polished woman from before. She looked hunted. For a long moment, the two women just looked at each other across 19 years of friendship and one unforgivable night. They made me, Tasha said, the words tumbling out fast and broken. Hanjae, his people, they had something on my brother. They said they would. Naya, I swear I did not know what it was for. I thought it was just photos. I did not know they would. I did not know about any of this. I have hated myself every single day. Tasha wept. You were the best person I ever knew, and I sold you for a debt that was not even mine. I am not asking you to forgive me. I came to warn you. Hanjae is not finished. He is moving on everything Kim owns. He is going to leave you both with nothing. I came to tell you, and then I will go, and you will never have to see my face again. The old Naya would have wept too, would have forgiven instantly out of a desperate need to be loved, or shattered the friendship forever out of pure wounded pain. She did neither. She looked at Tasha for a long, level moment, and when she spoke, her voice was something new, something quiet and certain that made even Min Park glance at her twice.
You're not going anywhere, she said.
You owe me, and I am going to collect it in a way you do not expect. You know Hanjae's people, Naya went on. You have been inside their reach. That makes you useful. You want to undo what you did to me, then you do not get to run away clean and feel sorry. You stay. You help me. You earn it. Tasha stared at her, stunned. And Min Park, the hardened soldier who had served Kim Cho for 9 years, looked at this woman the world had once laughed at and felt the first cold prickle of something he had only ever felt around his boss. Authority. He felt authority coming off her, the same invisible weight that had always come off Kim, and it did not fit anything he thought he knew about her, and that was exactly why it worked. He did not know it yet, but Min Park had just watched the birth of the person who would one day give him his orders. From the doorway, in his chair, Kim watched the whole thing. He saw Naya take command of a room full of people from his world, people who eat the gentle alive, and he saw them bend toward her. And his heart filled and broke at the same time because he knew this road. He had walked it himself long ago, and he knew where it led and what it cost. The woman he loved was stepping onto it to save him, and he was not sure he could bear to watch her pay the toll. That night, while Kim slept the heavy sleep of the healing, Naya stood at the window and looked down at the same city that had once published her body for strangers to laugh at. It did not look so big anymore. It looked like a board, pieces and players and moves, and somewhere out there, a gaunt man with a scarred throat who had taken everything from the only person who ever truly saw her. The old voice tried, one more time, to rise in her throat. You cannot do this. You're soft. You are a boutique girl. You are too much and not enough. Men like Hanjae eat women like you. And Naya listened to it all the way through, calmly, the way you let a tired child finish a tantrum. And then she answered it, for the last time in her life. You are right, she told the voice. I am too much. I have always been too much. And he is about to learn what that costs. And the voice that had ruled her for 28 years, the voice that strangers and friends and enemies had all fed and weaponized, went quiet, not soothed. Not comforted, defeated, for good. The next morning, Han-jae sent his answer to Kim's reduced little court. It arrived the way real threats do in their world, quietly. A plain dark envelope, left on the desk of Kim's own private office by someone who had walked in and out of a guarded building just to prove that he could. Min found it. Naya opened it. Inside was a single photograph. Her boutique. The little elegant shop where she had folded silk and survived the morning after her whole life was published. And beneath it, in elegant handwriting, 6 words. Everything he loves. One thing at a time. A month ago, that photograph would have terrified her. Now she looked at it and felt only a cold clarity settle into place. He was telling her he would burn down everything Kim loved, piece by piece, starting with her. He thought the boutique was a soft target. He thought she was a soft target. He had read her file, all of it, the loneliness and the shame and the smallness. He had read everything except the last chapter. She set the photo down on Kim's desk, in Kim's office, and she made her first real decision as something more than a frightened woman in love. He thinks he is hunting a man in a wheelchair and the soft girl behind him, she said to Min, who stood waiting in the doorway. Let him keep thinking it. Underestimation is the only advantage we have left. And I intend to spend every bit of it. She gave Min Park his instructions in a low, clear voice, and the soldier listened, and the soldier nodded, and the soldier did the thing that would have been unthinkable a week ago. He said, yes, I will see it done. Not to Kim. To her. It was a small moment. It was also the hinge on which everything turned. That evening, Kim called her to him, and his face was grave. I know what you're doing, he said quietly. I have watched you do it for a week. You are picking up my world. Naya, you do not understand what it asks. It took everything human in me to survive it. I did not love a single day of who I had to become. I cannot watch it do that to you. I would rather lose everything. She knelt in front of his chair and took his face in her hands, the way he had taken hers on a balcony a lifetime ago. You spent your whole life becoming hard so that no one could touch you, she said. And then you spent the last of it becoming soft for me. Let me carry the hard part now. You taught me I was strong enough to be loved. Let me show you I am strong enough to do the loving back. All the way. And Kim Cho, who had killed men for looking at him too long, who had never in his life surrendered anything to anyone, looked at the woman kneeling in front of his chair, and he surrendered. Not his life. Something harder. His control. He gave her the one thing he had never given another living soul. He let someone else carry him. So it began. Quietly, the way she did everything now. While Han-jae waited for fear, for flight, for a wounded man to crumble, Naya moved. She used Tasha's knowledge of his network. She used Min's loyalty and his contacts. She used the one weapon Han-jae had handed her himself without realizing, the fact that nobody takes the soft woman seriously until it is far too late. She learned his suppliers. She learned which of his loyal men were loyal only to money. She learned the shape of his empire the way she had once learned the shape of her own shame, completely, unflinchingly, until she knew every soft place where it could be made to break. And one by one, without a single shot fired, she began to turn his own people against him. Within 2 weeks, the man who had spent 3 years building a perfect trap began, for the first time, to feel the floor move under his own feet. Shipments vanished. Trusted lieutenants stopped answering. Doors that had always opened for him stayed shut. He did not understand it. He was looking for a rival, a man, an army. He never thought to look at the quiet woman behind the wheelchair. For the first time since he had climbed out of the grave Kim thought he had buried him in, Han-jae was afraid of a thing he could not name. And that, Naya knew, was only the beginning. She was not going to simply beat him. She had decided something colder in the long nights beside Kim's bed. She was going to take everything he had, the way he had taken from them, one piece at a time, and she was going to make him watch. Kim watched her become it. Night after night, he watched the woman who once apologized for taking up space learn to fill a room until everyone else in it grew quiet. He loved her. He feared for her. And underneath both, in a place he barely admitted to himself, he was in awe of her. He had built his empire out of pain and rage. She was building hers out of something he had never had. Love, sharpened into a blade. A month after a bullet took Kim Cho's legs on a red-lit staircase, the balance of the city had quietly, invisibly begun to shift, and almost no one knew why. But Han Jae was no fool. A cornered predator eventually turns and sees clearly. And one night, alone in his own shrinking stronghold, he finally asked the question he should have asked from the start. Not who is the rival, but who is the woman? When the answer came to him, it came all at once, and it turned his blood cold. The soft woman.
The bait.
The lonely girl he had selected from a file because the world had already taught her to hate herself. She was the one dismantling him. He had built the perfect weapon to destroy his brother, and he had handed it, fully assembled, to the one person it would never occur to anyone to fear. And a hunted man is a desperate man. Han Jae stopped trying to take Kim's empire piece by piece. He decided to end it in one stroke, to remove the quiet woman who had become his real enemy before anyone else realized what she was. That night, Naya's phone rang with a number she did not know, and a voice she would never forget spoke into her ear, smooth and patient and cold. "Clever girl," Han Jae said. "I will give you that. I have been looking for the wrong enemy for weeks. You hid in the place I would never look, right out in the open, where the soft things live." Naya said nothing. She had learned, from a master, the power of a patient silence. "You took something that did not belong to you," Han Jae went on, his voice losing its silk. "His empire is mine by blood. Walk away now, girl. Take your broken man and live. Or keep playing and learn what I do to the things Kim loves." And Naya, the woman who had once begged a phone to let her best friend pick up, finally spoke. "You spent 3 years learning everything about me," she said quietly. "My loneliness, my shame, the exact shape of how to break me. And you missed the only thing that mattered, the same thing everyone who ever underestimated me has missed. A pause, deliberate, lethal. I have already survived the worst thing anyone could do to me. You are not the worst thing, Han Jae. You are just the last one." She ended the call before he could answer. Another thing she had learned. Never let the other person have the last word when you can take it yourself. But as the screen went dark in her hand, the cold clarity she had wrapped around herself for weeks flickered, just once, because she knew what her words had done. She had not frightened him off. She had declared war on a man who had already proven he would burn the whole world to win. She came home fast that night and found Min already on his feet, his phone in his hand, his face grim. "He is moving," Min said. "Tonight. Everything at once. He is done playing. He knows what you are now, and he's going to hit us with all of it before you can finish taking him apart." She went straight to Kim. She always would. Whatever she was becoming, whatever the city would one day call her, this was still the center of it. This man in this chair who had taught her she was worth fighting for. "He is coming," she told him. "All of it, tonight." Kim looked up at her, and instead of fear, there was something almost like fierce joy in his ruined, brilliant face. "Then we finish it together," Kim said. "My mind, your will." He has never faced both at once. For a month she had carried him. Now, in the hour of the storm, he reached up from the chair and became her partner in it, the strategist feeding the queen, and for the first time since the staircase, the most dangerous man the city had ever feared smiled like he meant it. Together, through that long night, they laid their trap, and it was Kim's cunning poured into Naya's nerve, the old king and the new queen building one last move on the board. Han Jae thought he was coming to wipe out a wounded man and an amateur. He was walking, though he did not know it, into the first true play of a mind that had learned strategy from the master himself, sharpened by a heart he had badly underestimated. The meeting was set on neutral ground, An old warehouse at the city's edge, the kind of place where men in their world go to end things. Han Jae came expecting surrender, or a slaughter he would win. He came with his men and his certainty, and the gun that had already taken one thing Naya loved. He did not come expecting the board to already be tilted under his feet. And then Naya walked in alone, into a warehouse full of dangerous men, in a long dark coat with her head high, and every single one of them, for just a moment, forgot to breathe. Not because she was afraid, because she was not. She walked into the lion's den the way she now walked into every room, like she had already decided how it would end. You came alone, Han Jae said, almost admiring, almost unsettled. Either you are very brave or very stupid. Neither, Naya said. I came alone because I do not need anyone else to handle you. You spent 3 years studying the woman I used to be. You should have spent 1 week studying the one I became. It was then that Han Jae felt it.
The shift.
He glanced to his men at the edges of the dark and found that some of them were no longer looking at him the way men look at a master. Naya had gotten to them. Days ago. One by one, with Tasha's knowledge and Min's reach and the cold patient work she had learned at a dying man's bedside. The room he thought was his had quietly become hers. You see, Naya said, stepping closer, fearless, you taught me the most valuable lesson of my whole life, Han Jae, and you did not even mean to. You taught me that the person everyone overlooks is the most dangerous person in any room. You overlooked me. Your men overlooked me. And while you were all busy fearing a man in a wheelchair, I took your whole world out from under you. Behind her, Min Park stepped into the light, and behind him, the men who had been Han Jae's an hour ago. The gaunt man who had clawed his way out of a grave to destroy his brother turned slowly and understood, at last, that he was the only one left standing on his own side. He had been so busy making Kim watch what his love cost, that he never once imagined that love could cost him back. She did not raise a weapon. She did not need to. She had unmade him with patience and intelligence, and the one thing he could never understand, because he had only ever built on hate, while she had built on love. I am not going to kill you, she told him, and watched the surprise cross his face. Killing you would be a mercy, and it would make me you.
No.
I am going to do something far worse. I am going to let you live with nothing in a city that now belongs to me. And that was the end of Han Jae. Not a bullet. Something he would find far harder to survive. Stripped of his men, his money, his territory, and his pride, left breathing in a world that had quietly changed hands while he was looking the wrong way. The ghost who came back from the dead to make his brother lose everything had, in the end, lost everything to the one person nobody thought to fear. She came home to him as the gray light of another dawn touched the windows, and he was awake, waiting, the way he had once answered her call on the first ring. She crossed the room and knelt by his chair and put her head in his lap, and for a long moment neither of them said anything at all. The war was over. They had survived it, and they had survived it together. You did it, he said softly, his hand moving in her hair. You took his whole world apart, and you never once became him. You did what I never could. You won it clean. She lifted her head and looked at the man who had given his body to keep her in the world, and she felt the last broken piece of the woman from the boutique counter finally, quietly, heel over. They sat together at the glass and watched the sun come up over the city. His city once. And now, though almost no one in it yet understood what had happened in the dark these past weeks, it had a new power rising quietly at its center. But power like that does not stay quiet for long. And what Kim said next, in the gold of that dawn, would change everything Naya thought this was. Naya, he said, and there was something in his voice she had never heard before, something that made her go still. What you did these past weeks. The men out there do not follow me anymore. You know that, do not you? They went into that warehouse for you. They came out for you. This thing I built my whole life, it does not have a king anymore. She stared at him, her heart beginning to pound, because she could see in his eyes that he was about to say something enormous, something there would be no walking back from.
It has a queen, he said.
And it is time you took what is yours. And if your heart is slamming right now, if you cannot believe where this just left her, then you already know what to do. Hit the like button and drop your comments loud in the comment section. The man the whole city feared is not who he was an hour ago, and nothing about their world will ever be the same.